Chris Farley was a comedian unlike any other, wild, unpredictable, and completely fearless when it came to making people laugh. From his childhood in Wisconsin to his meteoric rise on Saturday Night Live, his story is filled with unforgettable moments, larger-than-life performances, and a deep desire to entertain. But behind the slapstick comedy and contagious energy was a man struggling with personal demons, battling addiction, and searching for acceptance. Today we take a deep dive into the life of Chris Farley, the highs, the lows, and the legacy he left behind. Childhood and family. Chris Farley was born on February 15, 1964 in Madison, Wisconsin, into an Irish-American family. He grew up in the small village of Maple Bluff, a wealthy suburb. Chris Farley's parents, Thomas John Farley Sr. and Mary Ann Crosby, played significant roles in shaping his personality, values, and ambitions. Coming from a devout Irish-American Catholic background, the Farley household was one of strong family bonds, religious faith, and a balance between discipline and humor. His father, Thomas John Farley Sr., was a hard-working businessman who ran the Scotch Oil Company, a successful petroleum and oil distribution business in Madison, Wisconsin. As the head of the household, he provided financial stability and instilled in his children a strong work ethic. Despite being a businessman, Thomas Sr. had a fun-loving side and was known for his own comedic personality. Many who knew the family recalled that Chris inherited much of his father's ability to entertain and command a room. However, Thomas Sr. also struggled with his weight, something Chris would later face as well. The parallels between father and son extended beyond their physicality. Both were beloved for their charm and ability to make people laugh, but they also shared a tendency toward excess, particularly with food and indulgent behavior. This familial trait would later contribute to Chris's struggles with addiction. His mother, Mary Ann Crosby, was the heart of the household. As a homemaker, she dedicated her life to raising Chris and his 4 siblings, Tom Jr., Kevin, John, and Barbara. Unlike the loud, boisterous personalities of her husband and sons, Mary Ann was known for her warmth, patience, and quiet strength. She was deeply religious and ensured that the Farley children were raised with strong Catholic values. Chris, in particular, remained devoted to his faith throughout his life, a testament to his mother's influence. Friends and colleagues often remarked on how, despite his wild public persona, Chris had a deeply rooted sense of morality and guilt, something that likely stemmed from his religious upbringing. Family gatherings at the Farley household were filled with laughter, storytelling, and energetic personalities competing for attention. Growing up in such an environment gave Chris a natural inclination toward performance. He wasn't just trying to make his classmates laugh at school. He was also perfecting his comedic timing at home, entertaining his siblings and seeking his parents' approval. During the summers, Farley spent his time at Red Arrow Camp near Minocqua, Wisconsin, where he was both a camper and a counselor. His time there was filled with outdoor adventures and bonding with friends, experiences that likely shaped his larger-than-life personality. In high school, he continued to develop his comedic instincts, often using humor to navigate social situations and make others laugh. Chris Farley's childhood was marked by both challenges and triumphs, shaping him into the larger-than-life personality that the world would come to know. Growing up in Maple Bluff, Wisconsin, Farley struggled with his weight from an early age. This made him a frequent target for cruel teasing from his classmates who gave him nicknames like Fatso and Chubby. While these experiences could have broken his spirit, Farley instead developed a coping mechanism that would define his future: comedy. He quickly learned that if he could make people laugh, he could take control of the situation, turning ridicule into entertainment. This natural instinct to diffuse tension with humor became a powerful tool, laying the foundation for his signature comedic style. Despite his weight, Farley was far from unathletic. He had a natural energy and enthusiasm that translated into sports, where he found an outlet for his larger-than-life persona. At Edgewood High School of the Sacred Heart, he participated in various athletic activities, and although he may not have fit the traditional image of an athlete, his determination and competitive spirit allowed him to hold his own. His love for physicality carried over to his time at Marquette University, where he discovered rugby, an intense and physically demanding sport. Unlike in childhood, where his size had been a source of ridicule, in rugby, it became an advantage. The rough nature of the game suited his fearless, all-in personality, and he threw himself into it with the same reckless abandon that would later define his slapstick comedic performances. Farley's childhood was also deeply influenced by his Catholic upbringing. Raised in a devout Irish-American family, he attended parochial schools where faith played a central role in his daily life. His commitment to attending Mass, even as an adult, spoke to the lasting impact of this religious foundation, though he would later gain fame for his wild antics and chaotic energy. Those who knew him personally often described him as having a deeply rooted moral core, one that likely stemmed from his early religious teachings. Summers at Red Arrow Camp near Minocqua, Wisconsin, were another defining aspect of his youth. As both a camper and later a counselor, Farley thrived in an environment that encouraged teamwork, physical activity, and storytelling. These summer experiences provided him with a stage before he ever set foot on a comedy stage, reinforcing his natural ability to captivate an audience. Although he went on to earn a degree in communications and theater at Marquette University, Farley's career path after graduation was anything but direct. Initially working at his father's oil company, he seemed destined for a conventional life in business. But his passion for making people laugh was too strong to ignore. He took his first steps into the world of improvisational comedy at the Arc Improv Theater in Madison, setting him on a path that would soon lead him to Chicago, the epicenter of sketch and improv comedy. There, he would begin his rise to stardom, always waiting for that one big break, one that would eventually come when Saturday Night Live took notice of his undeniable talent. Chris Farley's career was a whirlwind of rapid success, groundbreaking performances, and an enduring impact on comedy. His unique style, rooted in slapstick physicality, self-deprecating humor, and an infectious energy, propelled him from improv stages to Saturday Night Live, SNL, and ultimately to Hollywood. However, his meteoric rise was accompanied by personal struggles that would later overshadow his promising career. In 1990, Farley joined Saturday Night Live, entering one of the show's most memorable eras. He quickly became a standout performer alongside fellow cast members Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Tim Meadows, Rob Schneider, and David Spade. Dubbed the Bad Boys of SNL, this group was known for their rebellious humor, off-screen antics, and ability to connect with audiences through an unconventional, sometimes chaotic style of comedy. One of Farley's most iconic characters was Matt Foley, the over-the-top motivational speaker who constantly warned others about the dangers of living in a van down by the river. This character, developed at Second City before making its way to SNL, was inspired by a real-life friend of Farley's, who became a Catholic priest. The exaggerated mannerisms, squatting, shouting, flailing his arms, were drawn from Farley's own rugby teammates and his high school football coach. The result was a character so unpredictable and high energy that even his co-stars struggled to keep a straight face during sketches. Beyond Matt Foley, Farley crafted a series of unforgettable characters, each defined by his signature physical comedy an ability to push himself to comedic extremes. He played Todd O'Connor, a die-hard Chicago sports fan in Bill Swirsky's Superfans, best known for the legendary "Da Bears" catchphrase. His Chippendales dancer sketch with Patrick Swayze remains one of SNL's most famous moments, with Farley throwing himself into the routine, despite the glaring contrast between his physique and Swayze's. He also appeared as a dramatic, overly emotional Gap Girls employee, a messy lunch lady in Adam Sandler's Lunch Lady Land, and the awkward host of the Chris Farley Show, where he fumbled through poorly prepared celebrity interviews. Farley's comedic brilliance lay in his ability to transform the simplest premise into something hysterical. His commitment to physical comedy, fearless improvisation, and larger-than-life persona made every performance unforgettable. Off-screen, Farley was just as wild as he was in front of the camera. Known for his love of pranks, he and Adam Sandler frequently made late-night prank calls from the SNL offices, using ridiculous voices to fool unsuspecting victims. His antics extended beyond harmless jokes. He was notorious for public nudity, mooning passing cars, and even defecating out of a 17th floor window as a prank. While his unpredictable behavior was initially laughed off as part of his outrageous personality, it soon became a liability. By 1995, his off-screen lifestyle had become impossible to ignore. His heavy drinking and drug use led to erratic behavior, and his inability to control himself behind the scenes became a problem for the show. Despite being one of the biggest stars on SNL, Farley was fired along with Adam Sandler. To many fans, this was a shocking decision, but to those who knew him personally, it was seen as an inevitable consequence of his worsening substance abuse. Leaving SNL did not slow Farley down. His transition to film came naturally, as he had already played supporting roles in Wayne's World 2 Coneheads, and Airheads. However, it was Tommy Boy, 1995, that solidified him as a leading man. Starring alongside David Spade, Tommy Boy followed the story of a bumbling but lovable man trying to save his late father's auto parts business. The film showcased everything audiences loved about Farley: his physical humor, infectious enthusiasm, and ability to play the underdog with heartwarming sincerity. Despite mixed critical reviews, Tommy Boy became a surprise box office success and later gained a cult following, cementing itself as one of the most beloved comedies of the 1990s. Following Tommy Boy, Farley and Spade reunited for Black Sheep, 1996, but the film failed to capture the same magic. Unlike its predecessor, Black Sheep was rushed into production before a completed script was ready. Frustrated with the direction of the film, Farley relapsed on the night of its premiere, a clear sign of his deepening struggles with addiction. Despite his personal battles, Farley remained a box office draw. His next major film, Beverly Hills Ninja, 1997, saw him playing a clumsy martial artist determined to prove himself. The film debuted at #1 at the box office, proving his comedic appeal was still strong. However, behind the scenes, his health was deteriorating rapidly. His weight had fluctuated dramatically, and his substance abuse was becoming harder to hide. Farley entered rehab multiple times in an attempt to get clean, but his relapses became more frequent. The lack of structure that SNL had once provided made it harder for him to maintain stability. His close friends, including Spade and Sandler, tried to support him, but his addiction proved difficult to overcome. Farley had several promising projects lined up before his death, many of which could have defined the next phase of his career. He was originally cast as the voice of Shrek in the 2001 animated film, recording nearly 85% of his dialogue before passing away. His take on the character was described as more vulnerable and human compared to Mike Myers' later version. In 2015, unreleased audio from Farley's original recording surfaced, giving fans a glimpse of what could have been. Beyond Shrek, he was also in talks for a biopic about silent film star Fatty Arbuckle, a project that could have given him a chance to showcase his dramatic talents. He was considered for lead roles in A Confederacy of Dunces and The Gelfin, and he was originally offered Jim Carrey's role in The Cable Guy, but had to decline due to scheduling conflicts. Scandals. Chris Farley was known not only for his incredible comedic talent and boundless energy, but also for his tumultuous personal life, marked by substance abuse and reckless behavior. His struggles with addiction, self-destructive tendencies, and erratic off-screen antics became almost as infamous as his on-screen performances. Below is a deeper analysis of these aspects of his life, exploring the impact they had on both his career and his tragic downfall. While filming Tommy Boy, Farley made a conscious effort to stay off drugs, but his addictive tendencies found another outlet, caffeine. He reportedly consumed up to 27 cappuccinos a day, suggesting that even in moments of sobriety, he sought stimulation in extreme ways. This obsessive behavior foreshadowed his deeper struggles with substance abuse, highlighting a pattern of replacing one dependency with another. His high-energy performances, which required intense physicality, likely contributed to his need for stimulants, whether in the form of caffeine or later, more harmful substances. His next film, Black Sheep, saw tensions rise between him and David Spade. Unlike Tommy Boy, which had a more organic dynamic, Black Sheep was a studio-driven attempt to recreate their previous success. The rushed production and lack of a complete script frustrated Farley, and the added stress may have contributed to his relapse. His volatile emotions surfaced in a physical altercation with Spade, stemming from jealousy and insecurity over screen time. This clash was a sign that his personal struggles were beginning to seep into his professional relationships. Chris Farley's off-screen behavior was as excessive and unpredictable as his on-screen performances. While his comedic genius made him one of the most beloved entertainers of his generation, his personal struggles with addiction, reckless partying, and self-destructive tendencies ultimately overshadowed his rising career. His inability to control his impulses, combined with the pressures of fame, led to a downward spiral that became increasingly difficult for him and those around him to manage. Farley's reputation for extreme partying was legendary in Hollywood. Unlike many celebrities who kept their personal excesses private, Farley's antics were often public and out of control. His love for excess extended beyond alcohol and drugs. He had an all-or-nothing personality that led him to push every limit. Whether it was food, caffeine, or illicit substances, he indulged without restraint. One of the most alarming incidents occurred at a hotel party where, heavily intoxicated, he nearly fell out of a 15th floor window. This near-death experience resulted in a severe arm injury that required hospitalization. More significantly, it led to a dependency on painkillers, adding another layer to his already worsening addiction. This incident was a turning point, as it demonstrated how his reckless behavior was no longer just about partying. It was putting his life in immediate danger. Even though he was adored by his friends and colleagues, Farley's behavior became increasingly erratic and difficult to manage. His signature crude humor, which had once been an endearing part of his personality, started to escalate into reckless stunts that blurred the line between comedy and genuine concern for his well-being. He frequently engaged in inappropriate pranks, such as public nudity, mooning passing cars from limousines, and making obscene prank calls with Adam Sandler from the SNL offices late at night. While these antics were initially seen as part of his charm, they eventually became a liability. Friends who had once laughed at his wild behavior now found themselves covering for him or trying to control situations before they got out of hand. His unpredictable actions were no longer just a source of entertainment. They were signs of a man spiraling out of control. By 1995, Farley's offset antics had reached a breaking point. His frequent partying, lack of self-control, and increasingly disruptive behavior became too much for NBC executives to tolerate. His declining professionalism, combined with his inability to show up reliably for rehearsals, forced the network's hand. Along with Adam Sandler, he was fired from Saturday Night Live. To fans, this decision was shocking. Farley was one of SNL's biggest stars, and his sketches were among the most memorable in the show's history. However, those closest to him saw the firing as inevitable. His addiction and reckless behavior had become too disruptive, and he was no longer able to function within the structured environment of the show. While leaving SNL should have been a wake-up call, it didn't immediately slow him down. In fact, with the success of Tommy Boy and his rising film career, he continued to push himself to extremes. Without the weekly routine of writing, rehearsing, and performing, his struggles worsened. The loss of structure left him more vulnerable to his addictive tendencies, making it even harder for him to maintain stability. Throughout his career, Farley entered rehab multiple times, desperately trying to break free from his addictions. However, the combination of fame, personal insecurities, and long-standing substance abuse made long-term sobriety nearly impossible for him. Each attempt at recovery was short-lived, and he often relapsed, especially during stressful periods of his career. One of the most tragic aspects of Farley's struggles was that he was aware of his problem. Unlike some celebrities who deny their addictions, Farley openly admitted that he was battling demons he couldn't control. Despite his best efforts, the cycle of substance abuse continued, and his friends and family watched helplessly as he struggled to regain control of his life. Despite his personal struggles, Farley remained in demand in Hollywood. He was cast in Beverly Hills Ninja, which became another box office success and had several promising projects lined up. He had even recorded most of his dialogue for Shrek, a film that would later become one of the most beloved animated franchises of all time. However, his declining health and erratic behavior made it clear that his substance abuse was taking a toll. As his addiction worsened, his weight fluctuated dramatically, and his physical condition deteriorated. His once energetic performances started showing signs of exhaustion. On set, he often struggled to keep up with the demands of filming, and his inability to stay clean became a concern for producers and directors. By the time of his final projects, it was evident that Farley was not the same vibrant comedian he had once been. Relationships. Chris Farley was known for his larger-than-life comedic style, but beyond his public persona, his relationships and friendships played a crucial role in shaping his personal life and career. Farley never married, but he had several notable relationships. In 1993, he was romantically linked to actress Lori Bagley, a model and performer who later appeared in Tommy Boy. Although their relationship was relatively short, it was significant enough to be mentioned in discussions about Farley's personal life. Around the same time, he was also involved with actress Karen Duffy, who, like Farley, was part of the entertainment industry. Despite these connections, Farley's relationships never seemed to develop into something lasting. His struggles with addiction, low self-esteem, and chaotic lifestyle may have contributed to his inability to maintain long-term romantic commitments. His close friends often described him as someone who deeply craved love and approval, yet his own self-destructive tendencies often pushed people away. Farley's time on Saturday Night Live, SNL, helped him form lifelong friendships with some of the most influential comedians of his generation. He was particularly close to Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Tim Meadows, and Rob Schneider. Together, they were dubbed the Bad Boys of SNL, a group known for their youthful energy, rebellious humor, and backstage antics. Among them, his relationship with David Spade was the most notable. The two had undeniable on-screen chemistry, which led to their successful collaborations in Tommy Boy and Black Sheep. However, their friendship was not without difficulties. While filming Tommy Boy, Spade once went out with Rob Lowe without inviting Farley, which deeply upset him. Feeling left out, Farley confronted Spade and physically attacked him on set, stomping on his hand. Spade, known for his dry wit, later joked about the incident, but at the time it signified deeper issues within their friendship. Farley's insecurities and jealousy often got the better of him. Despite these conflicts, Spade and Farley remained close. Spade was noticeably absent from Farley's funeral, leading to speculation about a rift between them. However, Spade later explained that he found it too painful to attend, suggesting that his grief over Farley's death ran deep. One of Farley's biggest influences was John Belushi, another SNL legend known for his explosive comedic talent and tumultuous lifestyle. Farley idolized Belushi, modeling his own career after him. Unfortunately, the parallels between their lives extended beyond their comedic brilliance. Both struggled with addiction, engaged in reckless behavior, and ultimately died from drug overdoses at the age of 33. This eerie similarity was so pronounced that Bill Murray, a close friend of Belushi, reportedly found Farley unsettling. Murray, who had worked with Belushi on SNL, saw too much of his late friend in Farley, the same immense talent, the same desperate need for validation, and the same dangerous path. Murray's discomfort was not rooted in dislike, but rather in a deep fear that Farley was heading toward the same tragic fate. Family played a crucial role in Farley's life. He was particularly close to his cousin, Jim Farley, who later became the CEO of Ford Motor Company. Jim has spoken about the pain of watching Chris struggle with substance abuse, describing his death as totally devastating. Their bond was strong, and Jim has since dedicated efforts to supporting addiction recovery programs, ensuring that Chris's legacy is not only remembered for his humor, but also serves as a cautionary tale for those battling addiction. Death. Chris Farley's death on December 18, 1997, was a tragic conclusion to a life filled with comedic brilliance, personal struggles, and an ongoing battle with addiction. His passing not only devastated those who knew him, but also served as a stark reminder of the dangers of substance abuse and the pressures that come with fame. Below is a deeper examination of the circumstances surrounding his death, its impact on those around him, and the eerie parallels with his idol, John Belushi. In the period leading up to his death, Farley had made several attempts at sobriety, entering rehab numerous times. Despite his efforts, he struggled to stay clean for long. On December 14, 1997, after a brief period of sobriety, he relapsed and returned to excessive partying. This pattern of short-lived recovery followed by relapse had defined much of his adult life. During his final days, Farley engaged in reckless behavior, heavily drinking and using drugs. His last known interaction was with a woman he had hired for companionship. Reports suggest that she exploited his vulnerable state, taking his watch and photographing him while he was visibly intoxicated. When Farley, in his final moments, begged her not to leave him alone, she ignored his plea and walked away. This heartbreaking detail underscores the loneliness he may have felt despite his fame and success. On the morning of December 18, 1997, Chris Farley's younger brother, John, found him dead in his Chicago apartment at the John Hancock Center. The official cause of death was determined to be a fatal overdose of cocaine and morphine, commonly referred to as a speedball. Additionally, the autopsy revealed that Farley suffered from advanced coronary atherosclerosis, which likely contributed to his body's inability to handle the drugs. The circumstances of his death bore an eerie resemblance to that of his idol, John Belushi, who had also died of a speedball overdose at the age of 33. Farley had long idolized Belushi, often citing him as a comedic influence. However, many of those around him, including Saturday Night Live veterans like Bill Murray, had expressed concern that Farley was following in Belushi's footsteps, not just in comedy but in self-destructive behavior. Sadly, those fears came true. Farley's funeral took place on December the 23rd, 1997, at Our Lady Queen of Peace Catholic Church in Madison, Wisconsin. The service was attended by over 500 people, including many of his friends and colleagues from Saturday Night Live and the comedy world. Notable attendees included Dan Aykroyd, Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Rob Schneider, Lorne Michaels, and Phil Hartman. One of the most talked about absences was that of David Spade, Farley's longtime friend and frequent co-star. This led to speculation about a possible falling out between the two. However, Spade later clarified that the reason for his absence was not due to any conflict, but because he simply couldn't handle seeing his best friend in a coffin. He later stated, "I just couldn't be in a room where Chris was in a box." His absence spoke volumes about the depth of his grief. Farley's death was a wake-up call for many in the comedy and entertainment industries. His struggles with addiction were well known among his peers, and his passing reinforced the dangers of unchecked substance abuse, particularly in high-pressure environments like Hollywood. Many of his close friends, including Adam Sandler and Chris Rock, have spoken publicly about how much they miss him and how his absence is still deeply felt. His death also left several projects unfinished. He had already recorded about 85% of his dialogue for the animated film Shrek, which was later re-recorded by Mike Myers. He was also in talks for several movie roles, including a biopic about silent film star Fatty Arbuckle and a third collaboration with Spade. His passing left a void in Hollywood, with many wondering what more he could have achieved had he been able to overcome his demons. Ultimately, Chris Farley's death serves as both a tragedy and a cautionary tale. While he brought joy to millions through his comedy, his struggles highlight the often unseen battles faced by those in the entertainment industry. His legacy lives on not just through his unforgettable performances, but also through the continued efforts of friends and family to raise awareness about addiction and mental health. Until